my name is Nick Gane from the University of Warwick. This is a video abstract for my TCS article, Nudge Economics as Libertarian Paternalism, which is a contribution to the special issue of TCS on post-neoliberalism. The main aim of this paper is to question whether nudge theory is based on neoliberal principles and foundations. Back in 2008, when Thaler and Sunstein first published their book, Nudge, there was extensive critical engagement with the nudge agenda. But since then, nudge has moved from strength to strength. And as we can see through the current and ongoing COVID crisis, nudge architects, behavioural scientists are increasingly prominent in advising governments how to respond to the crisis. We can see this particularly in the UK. But I'm not interested in this paper in drawing up a balance sheet of the positives and negatives of different behavioural policy interventions. Rather, I'm interested in the political and philosophical underpinnings of the nudge agenda. I'm interested in particular in what Thaler and Sunstein call libertarian paternalism, and why this form of gendered authority, paternalism, sits at the heart of their conceptual framework in nudge. I'm interested also in what they mean by nudging for good. When you raise questions of good, then you no longer stay within the bounds of science, but you move to questions of politics, values, and ethics. And this question of good is all the more important given that nudge techniques, behavioural techniques have long been used by commercial enterprises and also form the basis of new media platforms, social media platforms, and arguably this has been one of the reasons why they have been so successful. So in that context, what does it mean to nudge for the good? I'm also interested in the underlying question of libertarianism that sits at the heart of the nudge agenda. It's clear that for both Sunstein and for Thaler, they're interested in moving powers away from the state and down through technocrats such as choice architects and down to individuals who then, they argue, can be empowered to make better choices for themselves. So they're not interested in state policy that introduces mandates or bans on particular products, but they're trying to promote consumer freedoms. And this is the very basis of what they think freedom is and should be. The other question here relates to the individualization of social and political problems, collective problems. So rather than be concerned with structural forms of power, structural forms of racism, gender politics, class, and so on, the answer for nudge theorists seems to be to deal with the effects of these problems and to deal with them behaviourally, individualizing these problems and treating them as psychological rather than political or social in basis. So I question that in this paper. And I also think of the nudge agenda alongside austerity politics. And in many ways, I argue that these things go hand in hand. It's a project to dismantle the reach and extent of the welfare state while trying to empower people who then become increasingly impoverished to make better decisions and be more responsible for themselves. In that case, I argue that the nudge agenda is neoliberal to its core.